5 years ago, would anyone here know that you'd be sitting here today 5 years in the future? As far as that goes, would anyone know where you would have been a month ago and be sitting here? Well, I am no different than everyone here in the crowd. I had a wonderful life. Enjoying my beloved home with my family when duty calls. I'm getting too warm. Are y'all too warm? I was expecting the wind out here. Oh, thank you, Martha. Careful.
You're welcome.
You got it? Anyway, I thought I would tell you a little bit about my upbringing as a child, born in Virginia on Pope's Creek. We didn't live there long until we moved onto the Rappahannock River. That time period, from Pope's Creek, I was fairly young, so I don't have a lot of memories of Pope's Creek, other than that's where some of my family members are buried now. But moving to the Rappahannock was a wonderful time period in my life. My father taught me all type of important skills. The sun rose and set in my father until I was 12 years old. And that's when my father passed away. Through that, being the oldest son of my mother, I had to take over a number of the roles there at the farm. Now, my father was married previous to marrying my mother, so I had two half-brothers from his previous wife that passed away when he remarried and married my mother. Lawrence, my older brother, saw my frustrations, but I also very much adored my older brother. You see, he was in the military. He had the control of all the militia in Virginia. And from that, I heard all of his military stories. I knew I wanted to be in the military. So, in talking to my mother, I had an idea. Young lads here, you there, lad, don't you have wonderful ideas sometimes? They just come to you, don't they? And you rush to your mother and tell her what you want to do. Does she always agree with everything you say? Yes, I want to do so and so. So, no, always. Does she always? Sometimes no, right? I know. And I'm no different than you. But after listening to my brother talk about all the military stories, I had that same idea. I went to my mother, told her, I know what I want to do. I want to join the Royal Navy and sail the 7 seas. What a wonderful life that would be. How exciting it would be. So you can imagine what would happen if you went and told your mother you wanted to join the Navy today. What would she say? Yes, please, go join, right? Right. Yeah. It's not nice to lie in front of your parents, okay? So my mother had the same reaction. She forbid me of ever thinking about that, which I obeyed her. But now looking back at it, couldn't you see me as a captain on board a ship for Great Britain? So I stayed there on the farm, tending my chores, and also helping protect and raise our family. My older brother, Lawrence, he saw my frustration. He took me under his wing and had me move to his home there on the Potomac. He had gotten this property from my father. And my father had owned a number of properties. Being a surveyor, he had surveyed and had this property on the Potomac north of us. And this property, my brother Lawrence, he built a home there and he named it after his commanding officer. His name was Vernon, Admiral Vernon. He named it Mount Vernon for his commanding officer. There I went and spent time with him and his wife. He taught me many important skills. Now the math and some of the rudiment skills on surveying I learned from my father. But there it was expanded greatly under Lawrence's tutelage. I learned the proper way of surveying, even to the degree that I became of Culpeper County, the surveyor there of Culpeper County. One of the other skills, and maybe you may not think much of this now, okay, but let's find a little older young lad. You're just the right age. Now these are certain skills, you have reading and writing and being able to cipher. You can cipher, can't you? Okay, good. All right. Well, the other type skills that are very important to have are social skills. Being able to speak properly with young ladies, being able to communicate with them properly, be able to dance with them properly. And how are you with those type skills? Are you good? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That invokes a lot of confidence there, doesn't it? Anyway, that's what my sister-in-law was able to pass along to me. So these are important skills. Yeah, you'll get those skills. Those are important later whenever you meet someone of the caliber of Martha. When that happens, then you'll be glad that you had the proper skills. Anyway, from that, I went through my term, if you want to call it that, and then my time period in the 7 Years' War. That taught me many, many, many skills. I had the knowledge of the backcountry from surveying so much of it into the Ohio Territory. And then from that standpoint, it gave me the knowledge on where to take the troops when I was given assignments. After those many trying years of seeing much bloodshed, the 7 Years' War was over. After that time period, that is when, pay attention now, falling back on my social skills, I met Martha. There, after a short, how long a period was it, ma'am? It wasn't long at all, I know. But we were back at Mount Vernon, there, enjoying my farm. You see, I forgot to tell you, there was a time period there that I had a number of tragedies. One was my brother Lawrence. After living with him and his wife, he came down with a very bad disease. Consumption. He had a hard time breathing, getting oxygen to breathe. So we went to the islands, Barbados, hoping that the tropical air would open his lungs up. But after a few months there, he was getting no better. So we returned home. Unfortunately, during that time, that would later come to really help my cause now during the Revolution, I contracted smallpox. Got over it. There's a few pot marks here and there. I survived okay. But after we returned home to Mount Vernon, my brother passed away. At that time, my sister-in-law was moving out of Mount Vernon, and she rented it to me. And then later, I could purchase Mount Vernon from her. So it becomes my home after that time. So I love agriculture. That's something I got from my father also. I love to grow crops. So there I can experiment with all my farming. I also love something else. I'll bet you a number of you have one of these. And my count now is, I kind of lose a count. But how many people here own dogs?
We do.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm up to 30 now. I lose count, but all different breeds. I love hunting dogs. I love fox hunting. Do you like fox hunting? So I love my home there at Mount Vernon. Now during the next few years, enjoying the bliss of marriage life and there farming at Mount Vernon, you see Parliament had to decide how to raise money for the 7 Years' War. They had went into debt. So the best way to raise that money is to tax the colonies. Between taxing sugar, taxing stamps, taxing paper, taxing tea. Rumors had it that hostilities were on the horizon. And when that happened, some of you may have heard of the little party that they had in Boston. They also had one in Yorktown. They also had one in Charleston. The rumor and the information got out really quick to show your distaste for such taxation. But then there was an incident, a second incident, a third incident. They passed a law that they could quarter the troops at anyone's home anytime they wanted to, as long as they wanted to. So whether you wanted them in your home or not, you didn't have a choice. They could come in, occupy your house, may let you stay there, may not let you stay there. This happened. And then you may have heard the small skirmish there at Lexington and Concord. That's really the spark that started the fight. From that time on, all the colonies started amassing and organizing militias, local militias. The first time that we got as many as we could together was there in Boston. And to say I was, I'm not going to say use the word surprised, but to say I was pleased would not be a good word to use either. I had never seen such a group of unorganized, armed individuals that had very unsanitized habits. I will tell you this, is I had one gentleman that I met in his militia. This was the group out of Rhode Island. Nathaniel Green was his name. They had trained. They could march. They could shoot. They had the wits about them. So that was one of my first commands that I saw, that I appreciated the effort that they put into it. We were in dire straits. We were fighting the biggest, strongest, most organized army in the world, with a bunch of farmers, merchants, sometimes lawyers. I'm not going to say politicians, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. So much needed help was needed. The word went out. We needed commanders that had been in the military that could help train our troops. Now, one thing that did happen was just a little over a year ago. It seems where we were located on the Delaware River, right across from Trenton, just a few days before Christmas of last year, of 76, we got word that there was a Hessian garrison there. So we organized a plan to be able to take our troops across on Christmas night, across the just about frozen Delaware River into Trenton, to see if we could capture those Hessians and, of course, all their stores. Because this is one thing that we're running into now. We're running into the lack of supplies, lack of tentage, food, uniforms, munitions. And when we get a chance and the enemy is there and we can capture them, we're going to capture what they have. So after much planning, we had wonderful boatmen that could manage the river very well. We took our troops in. It took longer to cross than we had originally planned. So it was right at dawn when we made the banks and every one of us was across. By the time we got into Trenton itself, one thing did work, and it worked very well. Well, you'll learn about this as you get older. But one thing about the Hessians, and Christmas time, they do love to celebrate Christmas. So celebrating all day on Christmas made them not very alert the next morning after Christmas. So we were able to capture Trenton without one loss on our side. General Rawl was unfortunately killed, wounded and died later. But there we got a renewal of purpose. It basically lifted all the men up. We proved then that we were a fighting force to be reckoned with. Many more battles between now and a year ago. Just a little over a month and a half ago, we came here to Valley Forge. Still needing supplies, still needing food, munitions. Some of the men are walking barefoot. We're starting to build cabins now. In fact, just yesterday, I think it was last week, we got 10 teams of oxen in and 2,000 shirts. Women drove them in from Philadelphia for us. So now the men have meat to eat and some shirts. I have also been communicating with one of my main generals, Nathaniel Greene. He is a wonderful commander. Unfortunately for the Army, we have had a quartermaster that was less than adequate. Let's just say that. We've taken him out of that position, and I have asked Nathaniel Greene to take over the quartermaster position. He should do a wonderful job. He's used to running his family business for months on end, knowing he knows how to move items, how to get supplies, how to organize all that chaos into a good supply line. So we should be doing better. There's a young lady a while ago that was talking to me about a young lad. Where are you? I think you're here somewhere. There you are. I did remember you. We had a young lad come about last fall. Paid his own way here from France. France did not pay his way. He paid his own way. He's a good horseman, not but a teenager. He's in his teens. All the officers took to him immediately. We all affectionately call him the boy, Lafayette. Now, a while ago, you were seeing the other gentlemen, officers that were training the troops out here. We just recently acquired a new officer. I'm not going to give him all of his notoriety names. We'll just call him General Steuben. He's German. And I will tell a little bit, he's not here today to defend himself, so I get to talk about him. But I talk about him even when he's here, so that's not a problem. It seems that he does know how to drill and how to teach drill. He knows how to fight and knows how to teach fighting. He even taught the men that bayonets are not for cooking with. One of the other things that you may not know, if you've heard of General Steuben, was he could not speak English when he first arrived. And he's expected to teach our troops how to march, how to operate their muskets, the finer arts of drill. But he could bark out the orders in German. So we had to have two interpreters, one that could speak French and German, and one that could speak English and French. So everywhere he marched, barking out orders, he would bark them out in German, and the interpreter in the middle would interpret them into English from German to French, and then the one on the end would interpret it from French to English. So everywhere he marched, and he would bark out the orders, then he started developing a manual that we can in turn train troops from that manual. But it's basically training the sergeants, and then they would go back and train the troops. One thing he did not need an interpreter for, and the young ones here, you'll have to overlook, because I do not use profanities in this way, but he did. No one had to interpret when he started getting colorful with his language. That's a universal language everyone understands when he got angry. But he's a good officer, and he has added much help to an otherwise struggling army. We have many more battles in front of us. This is just early '78. We don't know how long this battle will last. It is not going too well in the South. We've lost a number of major battles in major cities there in the South. But we will continue to fight and struggle along and win the ones that we can win and pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and continue fighting. I wish I had more happy news for you here, but it's a struggle. And I know there'll be more winners that we have to struggle. But with God's help, we will persevere. So that is the most up to date. Martha, fortunately for me, she accompanies me into camps, especially winter camps, and helps organize the dances for all the officers. You see, most of the officers bring their wives to them for the winter encampment. And Martha and Nathaniel Green's wife, Katie, they are the organizers of all the balls that we have. And I do enjoy dancing, don't I, there? It's a wonderful time of having good camaraderie with all the officers. So the spirits are up now. Just recently, we've even got a wagon load of cast iron cookware. These are wonderful additions to otherwise very Spartan type camp that we have. But I wish I could wrap it up with wonderful news, but we are struggling now. So I would ask for your prayers. And any chance that you get to support, please do. I asked someone a while ago, we were talking briefly in the cabin here. One of the struggles that we have, and General Green runs into this problem now constantly, and I do too, is you see, we have to deal with Congress. This is a struggle. One, the colonies have minimum funds, minimum supplies, and both of those we need. But Congress, who here, let's see a show of hands, who here would like to deal with Congress?
What do you mean by deal with?
Who here would like to negotiate and work with Congress? Okay. I catch your sentiments, okay. This is another, besides having to deal with the British and King George and the Parliament and fighting their restrictions, we also have our own restrictions right here. So I appreciate your time today and attentiveness in hearing my up-to-date information on where we're standing here and during our conflict with Great Britain. I'm open for any questions. If I haven't answered every question, and which I'm sure I haven't. Yes, sir.
You kept talking about dancing. What were some of the dances that you did in the 18th century?
We're in the 18th century, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
What are the dances we do right now?
You're in the 18th century, sir. Obviously, you don't have social skills. Okay. Because if you did, at your age, you ought to know all the dances. See, I'm not picking on you anymore, lad. He stepped up, so.
Are there any ones that I don't know that you would?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty. If you're having to ask me, your elder, what dances, that means. Yes, oh, I know. Everyone enjoys waltzes. Oh, you'll be okay. Yes, ma'am.
Give us a demonstration of the dances.
I cannot. Not at this moment. Okay. Well, you know, it's kind of appropriate. Right, right. Even though I do dance in my uniform, but normally not outside in the cold. Okay. More questions? Did I miss some hands? Oh, sorry.
I understand that during your lifetime, you were close with Alexander Hamilton.
Yes.
Do you remember how
I'm still alive, madam.
Do you remember,
Okay.
do you remember how the two of you met, or why was he important to you? Why is
Other
he
than I
important?
think we met in the first meetings that we had there in formation of the Congress. In that type. He still is. Well, he's one of my officers. Okay, so I have to kind of speak lightly about him here. He's within earshot, I'm sure, you know. More questions? None? Oh, back to you, sir.
What is your favorite pastime?
My dogs. You have a dog? See, you understand. Yes, ma'am.
Your favorite crop that you raised?
Well, the best cash crop is tobacco.
What was your favorite?
Well, I also have a distillery. So rye is a good crop, okay? It's also a wonderful cash crop, okay? You turn it into distilled spirits, then you can sell it and make, right, it doesn't go bad. You put corn in a crib, guess what gets to it?
Oh, maybe.
Rats and mice. Then you don't have any of your product, but you turn your grains into distilled spirits, like rye whiskey. You can sell that and it doesn't go bad. It's a good cash crop. Yeah.
How old were you when you got Mount Vernon for your
In my late teens, early 20s. I don't remember the exact date. I just remember what happened with my brother and him dying, and I rented it for a good while, paid her a rent before we kind of transitioned out. I transitioned over to the owner and paid her. And so I never moved out. It was just kind of a transitional time. Yes, ma'am.
How old were you when you got married?
In my 30s. Let's just leave it at that. Yes, ma'am.
What are some of your future aspirations? Besides
Well,
winning the war, do you have any?
That's enough. That's enough. Okay. At this point, getting to next week, getting to the following 6 months, planning ahead. One of the things that I implemented back, here we go, I requested to Congress, and they approved back in the middle of summer, the Department of Geographers. This was a vitally needed department that we needed, that we need. We have it now, but we did not have it then. You see, growing up as a surveyor, being taught surveying, I have those skills. But when you're trying to move 10,000, 12,000 men over 20 miles every day, day after day after day, you have to know where you're going. You have to know what's in the road ahead of you. You have to know every 5 miles, you have to feed, water the stock. Every 10 miles, you have to feed and water them again, and feed and water them in. Then every 20 miles, you have to have a large enough area picked out to be able to have another encampment where all the wagons arrive again and set everything up. So I requested the Department of Geographers be organized, and I picked a very good surveyor to start that crew. So now we're getting, when we're moving the troops, I get a map every day over the next 20-mile march. They're in front of us, surveying, creating maps, so we know where all those vital bits of information are, where the river crossings are, if we have to go over a mountain range, if there's any mountains involved. That's important to know. Yes, lad.
If the British are in the area of our possessions, if the British are in the area of our possessions, but the British are.
Another thing you need to know.
Yes,
British
exactly
are.
right, exactly right. With those maps would also, if they came in contact with any of the opposition, the British, we would know where they're located also. Yes, ma'am.
When you're at winter camp, where are your children?
They were back home at Mount Vernon. Martha did not bring the children here. It's not a good place for children. Okay? It's barely a good place for the wives. Okay? What is
What is your favorite dog breed?
dog breed? Hunting dog. Foxhounds. In fact, I'm working on an idea on how to come up with a better foxhound breed. I haven't got it quite figured out yet, but I'm working on it.
So winter's frigid and your men don't have much to eat. How likely is it that you'll actually be able to get through the winter?
Well, we're getting supplies now. Because we just got 10 teams of oxen in about a week and a half ago.
Right. With that, how likely is it that you'll be able to get through the winter and win the war?
How, well,
What's the likelihood?
Madam, that's what prayer is for. All right. Yes, sir.
Who is your most confident officer?
At this particular moment,
Yes.
I can tell you something that I'm disappointed in, but I'm very partial to Nathaniel Green.
What do you want to see in the future of these 13 colonies?
Freedom. That's what we're fighting for.
Can you share with us one of your favorite prayers?
I could at a later date. When it's prayer, for the most part, is a private thing. I don't normally read my prayers out in front of a crowd. Yes, sir.
How old are you now?
At this time, I'm about 43. Forgot when my birthday. I think I've had a birthday since we've been here.
How are your teeth?
How
How are your teeth?
how are my teeth? Mostly in my mouth. Sometimes they come out of my mouth. That has been a pain for a long time, literally. That's why I try not to smile a whole lot. All right, we have, I know I'm under a time constraints here. Who has their timepiece that they can get to? 2:45. Okay, well, we're okay. We can leave it open for a few more questions.
Why did you chop down the cherry tree?
All right, I got that question a while ago, madam. And I can sorry. Okay. I can truthfully tell you that I did not chop it down. We won't go into my temper right now. Some of my officers know of my temper. I try to keep it bridled, but even as a young lad, it sometimes came out. And that one occasion has followed me a long time. You see, my father was wanting to go across the river into town, which I thoroughly enjoyed going to town with him. He had my chores for me to do, but he took my younger brother instead, telling me to stay home and finish my chores. Well, what I was doing then was I was chopping firewood, and he had one of his favorite trees there. So I lashed out at the tree, causing a nice scar in it, not cutting it down. And unfortunately, my father saw that on his return. So we won't go into the punishment phase of that, but that's what happens when you lose your temper. But the story haunts me to this day. Yes, Mike.
What happened in cherries that were on that tree.
We ate them. Why would you grow a cherry tree and not want to eat the cherries? You haven't learned your lesson, have you? Okay. Go ahead.
What form of government in this world right now would be your favorite? Like, what country best resembles the government that you would want to see in America today? These 13 colonies in the future.
Well, we're still dealing with that because what we have now with the Congress is not the best. Okay, but that's not a government. That's basically banding together to be able to fight a cause. We're still a long way from having a government. But there's obviously, England is not the route to go with the king. You may want to look back into Roman times or other times, hundreds of years ago, to be able to pull off good pieces from a lot of different governments at that time. But those men are smarter than myself that will help determine the fate of our government.
What's your favorite book?
The Bible. You have a whole bench there of questions.
What's your favorite Bible verse?
There's too many. That's a very open question. Yes, Lyle.
If you're here and your wife is with you, who's watching over your children?
Our help. We have plenty of help that runs Mount Vernon in my absence. So they're taking care of the children.
How old are they?
There you go. How old are our children now? What's their? I said, how old are the children now? It's been several years since I've seen them.
Yes,
I remember what they look like. Okay.
our son is in his teens, and our daughter is a preteen.
Okay. I'm open for questions. I know they're wanting to get organized again to have some more drills. I will be here the latter part of the afternoon. So if you'd like to ask further questions that I can either elude or answer directly, feel free to come into the cabin. I'm not going to guarantee that it's any warmer in there than it is out here. But you're welcome to come into the cabin and speak further. So I appreciate all your attentiveness, and y'all have a wonderful day. Safe travels this evening. And we will talk to y'all very soon. Thank you. Thank you, sir.